If you have ever tried looking for male or masculine fitting knitting patterns on Ravelry, you know that it can be quite difficult to find patterns that both give a kind of joyful and interesting vibe while also seeming interesting to knit. Garments that are fitting into a normal everyday wardrobe, but still not the plain kind of blending to the wall sweaters that unfortunately make up quite a large portion of the male category of knitwear on Ravelry. My name is Siggy. I live in the south of Sweden and I like to knit, and I found 12 male masculine knitting patterns that actually makes me feel something, and I want to share them with you. The first one is called the Modern Mudcloth Sweater. It is designed by Chinua Chin Matthews, and this is a top-down raglan construction sweater made for sport weight yarn with a gauge of 24 stitches per 10 centimeters in this beautiful all-over color work. It is inspired by the mudcloth textile printing tradition from Mali, and it just blew me away when I saw it. I think it really does color work so well. It incorporates the raglan lines so beautifully into these vertical stripes of colorwork pattern. And I, who can usually find black and white contrasting patterns to look a bit too strong on the eye, feel like they blend in so beautifully here. Maybe because all of the patterns are kind of broken up or like made in dots, so that it gives this kind of unified and beautiful collective input. I think it's such a stunning sweater, and if you look at all of the examples of people who have made it on Ravelry, you can see that it looks really good in different colors also. I would really love to have this in my wardrobe. I think it's a super good example of male masculine design that doesn't look too plain while still being really kind of normal, or like would fit into like a normal wardrobe, you know? The second pattern is called the Elbrücken pullover, and it's made by Ruteman Designs. It's Andreas Ruteman. And this is a pullover sweater that is made in a quite interesting construction. If you read the description, it starts working the shoulder bits and then you work the rest of the sweater. It has these beautiful undulating lines across the shoulders that are inspired by the bridges across the river Elbe in Hamburg in Germany. And I really love a garment that brings unexpected attention to a body part that's usually not one being given super much attention. And here, like these shapes on top of the shoulders, it's so gorgeous to bring this, have this kind of plain looking stomach and back with these gorgeous little panels of texture on the shoulders that look really almost like glittery or very decorative, but still very kind of in a subdued manner. I find that Andreas Ruteman also has so many interesting designs that kind of fall into this category of having almost like deceptively normal looking, but then you see that they have these beautiful textures on them. There is another one with like a beautiful crisscross on the turtleneck, and some other ones that also have these super interesting textural details. And I find that this one really brings joy to me from this, that it points out a body part that isn't normally one that receives super much decoration in knitwear. Then we have number 3, this gorgeous cabled beauty, the Porter Pullover 2 by Megan Babin. I have been drooling over Megan Babin's cabled patterns for some time, and it was difficult to choose just one, but I selected this one because I like these kind of honeycomb textures going across the front and the back. This is made for a 18 stitch gauge, and it's knit in panels and then sewn together. To me, it's just absolutely stunning. It is a complex undertaking to make such a fully and deeply cabled garment, sewing it together, and I think it's made from the bottom up. So it would be quite a piece of work to do all the swatching and make sure you will have everything correct before you get started. But the payoff is this gorgeous decorative sweater that really, also the same way as the Elbrücken one, it looks a bit deceptively normal, but still so gorgeous and decorative and joyful with all of these patterns and lines crisscrossing everywhere. It's also such a masterpiece of cabling to be able to pull this off and do this. So I wish at some point I will have the patience and the endurance to learn how to make these types of all over cabled sweaters. Number 4 on the list is the Bolt sweater by Maxime Sur, one of the Les Garçons. And this is such a fun and bright intarsia sweater. I have never worked in intarsia, and I think this kind of trompe-l'œil optical illusion pattern is such a fun way to use the intarsia style of knitting to create something that is very impactful and decorative and fun, while also creating the silhouette and the structure of the sweater in a very smooth and plain way. It is for a 21 stitch gauge, and with the intarsia it's worked flat and then sewn together. And I know, I guess maybe it is possible to work intarsia in the round, but I think if I did intarsia I would also prefer to do it flat and then sew it together. I think it's well worth the effort to do the sewing if you want to create some really beautiful intarsia patterns like this. It's also, he notes that it's inspired by the character Dan Levi from the TV series Schitt's Creek. I haven't seen that TV show, but I thought it was a very fun detail to imagine that this is inspired by a TV character. Next we have the Partition pullover by James N. Watts, and this is a lacework long sleeve in this very open gauge. It's like in the lacework it says it's 14 stitches per 10 centimeters. I think looking at the photos, I find that the examples that I think look the best are the ones that have a little bit less ease, that it's a bit more form-fitting, so it leans a bit more into being a sort of fishnet or, you know, rave type sweater. It's worked from the top and down in this quite simple looking lace pattern, and it's made for sport weight yarn. I think this looks really good. I think it is very much a design that looks almost like store-bought, because I don't... Usually when you see lace designs, they're a bit more frilly, and this lace design is quite smooth and leaning towards a bit more like you know, these crisscross undershirts, and I really like it. Next, going kind of in the opposite direction with something that's very thick and very covering and made for a cold weather rather than the sweaty nightclub, is the Troutbeck by Marie Wallin, or I also hear people pronouncing it Marie Wallin. This is a Fair Isle style all over colorwork sweater. It's made with a thin fingering yarn for a 28 stitch gauge, and the colors on this are just so joyful. I cannot escape this word joyful when I look at it. It's made in panels and then it's seamed together, so it's not steeked like some Fair Isle patterns I read are, but it's made in panels, sewn together. I think that would mean you do have to do the purling in the color work, but I think if you spend the energy to make something as beautiful and intricate as this, it's well worth it to learn that technique. And I think that would be kind of one of the joys of jumping on a so fine and detailed pattern like this, is to be able to expand into the skill of doing the color work in the way that it's described. The next one is called Apollo. This is the only cardigan pattern that I selected. It's designed by Martin Story, and it's such a fun combination of cables and color work in the same garment. This is made for Rowan. It's made for a silk and cotton yarn, and it has like a 19 stitch gauge. So I think it's also made for like being a sort of summer wear. I think it's part of a collection of garments inspired by the maritime sort of vibes. But I thought these crisscrossing cables going across the front was so nice and looked so, yeah, the thinness of the lines looked so like tree roots or something very growing and organic. And then we have this color work around the band on the lowest side of the cardigan that I also found really appealing, that it has so much decor. I love, it's almost baroque, you know, you find a small surface of something and you need to add more decoration to it. Moving on to some t-shirts. This first one is called the Mohit t-shirt. Designer is stated as Pasquale Collezione, so it's made from someone on the Pasquale brand team, I guess. And this is made for a 26 stitch gauge on cotton and linen blend yarn. It's made like a raglan top from the top and down in the round, so very like simple, easy construction. I really like this little detail on the sleeve and the loose fit. It looks quite like it sort of fits into the current moment of fairly loose fitting, like oversized boxy t-shirts in the male garment department. The next t-shirt is called Fermin, and it's made by the designer Felipe Sepulveda, and this is made in sock yarn or fingering weight wool, but on an 18 stitch gauge, so fairly loose and open for being such light wool yarn. It is designed as a raglan knit in the round from the top and then going down, so this kind of simple, contemporary, traditional for being contemporary construction. And it's plain, like smooth, but it has these gorgeous little textures on the front and on the sides of the sleeves. And I also think that the color choice in the example on Ravelry is so gorgeous. I would love to have a t-shirt in that color in my own wardrobe. But this just also exemplifies how you can make male, masculine fitting outfits that sort of fit into a more standard wardrobe, but still have these elements that make it stand out, both as something that is interesting to knit and interesting to wear. Moving on to the modern knit polo by Chase Harpole. This is made for a fingering weight yarn in 24 stitches gauge for 10 centimeters. And it's constructed from the top down, so I guess you would make the shoulders and then the front sides and then going around. And I would say that this pattern has a really like amazing size range and options for customization. So I think it was something like 40, like if you considering all of the customization options, you could get out like 40 different sizes. And of course, you can go beyond that with your own customizations. So this has a really amazing size range and adjustments for different fit. But for me, what strikes me with this is that I really love the 1970s style of like the tight fitting polo with a bit of a slutty neck opening. And it just is such a kind of underrated fashion, I think, at the moment. Like I said, we are kind of in a moment with this kind of boxy, a bit oversized fitting masculine t-shirts. And I wish we were more in a tight t-shirt kind of era because it looks so good. And especially with this little neck opening and the collars, like I think it really does a lot for people to have these little details that just makes it a bit sexy. Next, another polo, a bit less slutty, this one, quite plain. It's designed by Nabita Jure, and it's made for the tiniest gauge of my selection here. It's made for a 32 stitch gauge. So on thin fingering or like very fine weight silk yarn. This is also, it's plain looking, but this is luxurious. Like the appeal in this one, the thing that makes me feel something here is that luxury element of it being a hand knit, smooth, silky polo with these beautiful little buttons. I like that the button opening is quite long, and I mean it's closed. It probably looks quite good open as well, but I kind of like these decorative buttons and the beautifully made collar that looks so like detailed and lovely. And I think this is something that can really, also in the same way that the more plain white cotton t-shirt can also elevate the wardrobe by looking exclusive and something different. This, I think, can really have both this really exclusive and wonderful feel for it being such a finely knit silk garment, but also I think the details elevate it to looking like something that is very like top notch, top of the line, is really gorgeous. And I mean, I think it would have to be also like this like labor of love, like knit on very tiny needles on a very fine gauge, going around, round, making an entire torso of this very fine silk yarn. And silk is a bit difficult to knit with because it has no elasticity, but I think the end result is so gorgeous and exclusive and like alluring, you know, gorgeous. Feels like, you know, Paris drinking some wine. Beautiful. The final example is in its own category. This is a vest called Machrihanish by Kate Davis Designs, and this is also on a 32 stitch gauge, so it's made for a very thin fingering wool. It's made in the Fair Isle pattern tradition and also in the steeking, so you would go round and make steeks for the armholes. And to me this speaks so much with this bright, gorgeous colors, and also the fit being quite narrow, going in a little bit at the waist. And it also has described that there is this, you can choose if you want to make it more like straight down or tapered in for the waist. And I think it looks so good on top of a fine plain cotton what's it called, shirt to have this tight, gorgeously decorative vest. I know that this, like, if you wear this in a day-to-day, you get this kind of vintage look about you, and I wish this type of vest that has been so trendy in like the women's or feminine fashion the past 2-ish years would kind of seep over to the man fashion category, but not just become these like big, you know, these big boxes of fabric that you would draw across your shirt. I want these kind of tight fitted, quite decorative, but still in some way quite distinctly masculine vests, exactly like this. And the color work, of course, is gorgeous, made in these beautiful Fair Isle style lines with the small patterns in between and the larger pattern repeats in the middle, and these color combinations that just catches the eye, but blends so well together on the entire thing. Again, coming back to this concept of like masculine clothing does not have to be plain and boring just because we, I don't know, for some reason happen to exist in this Western fashion sense where everything that is decorative, colorful and fun is not masculine enough. We can have like masculine beauty and masculine decorative fashion, and I hope that all of these things that I've selected here kind of maybe gives a bit of inspiration, at least send you a bit in the direction of finding some interesting things on Ravelry, maybe even cast something on that looks fun and interesting. I'm going to end here. Thank you so much for watching and being with me. I will see you the next time that I make a video, and I hope you are doing well until then. Bye bye.